Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
That's good. Lovely to see you all, and I'm very pleased to be honoured with the occasion of delivering these 4 workshops for Donegal Volunteer Centre and the team in the show, the team in Donegal. What I'm going to do is just, it isn't quite death by PowerPoint, but very often the groups that are involved in this process need to share some of this information with the other members of the FISH, our committee, our team, our organisation. So I've tried to what's the word for it? To minimize the amount of text that is on slides, but I do want to share a PowerPoint with you if I can find it. So I'm going to go and try and find this while I'm talking to you. That's not going to work. Okay, 1 second now. Let me just the plan is that there's 4 sessions. The first one today is we're going to look at building a fundraising strategy for everybody in light of the circumstances we find ourselves in, I suppose. And I'm not going to dwell on those things that we can't control, and I'm not going to even worry about whether we're going to be, as the fellow says, in level 3, level 2, level 4.5, whenever we get out of where we are currently, because those things are out of our hands. I'm only going to focus on what we can try and achieve for ourselves. Can people see that slide?
No.
Can't.
No. Okay, 1 second now. Hopefully, are we on slide number 1 there now?
No.
You're sharing, Colm, but we're not seeing anything.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
There it is. It's up now.
Okay, so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
slide number 1. So I'm going to start now from that. Okay, if I may. Now, can people see that opening slide?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so they're the sort of the 4 key themes, folks, that we're going to be looking at over the next 4 sessions. A new fundraising strategy, looking at public relations, looking at annual reports, and demonstrating your reach and impact, and how you can use those tools to advance an agenda developmentally and strategically for yourselves. And the third element will be looking at social media in all its manifestations and what's working for community groups currently in this environment, and the sea change that there has been in Ireland in the last 9 or 10 months, I suppose, in the way everybody is approaching the use of social media as a consequence of the time we're living in. But perhaps from the less of the point of view of just getting information out, but also getting people to understand the impact and the reach and championing of the activity that you do in your community. And then the final session is going to look at, I suppose, hopefully, as we move a little bit more into November, the task force that I was involved in at governmental level in the outdoor events and cultural scene will have reported to the Minister, and some of the key signposting from that should be able to help us to identify what NEFIT might be able to allow in a revised level 4321 programme that will be launched, we believe, towards the end of November, early December, which should help everybody in trying to programme what we're going to have to do next. So they're the key dates today, next Thursday, and there's a bit of a break in between the latter 2. Sorry? Are we okay?
Yeah, Colm, you might, you've control there. Could you maybe just mute all participants, please, if you don't mind? Sorry, I should have done
Right,
that.
okay. Now,
Apologies.
breakout rooms, recording. I should know exactly where that is, but of course, now that I want to, I won't.
That's fine. And I go to Colm, go ahead. Everybody's.
Sorry, the 11th of November is a Wednesday.
Oh,
Not
that should be
Thursday.
the Thursday. My fault. Okay, I'll fix that. Thank you for pointing that out. Sorry, it's a Thursday. They're all Thursdays. We're trying to keep the same one. Okay. Sorry now. What did that do? There's people in the waiting room. We should admit them all, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, please, Colm.
Okay, with that done now. I want to mute all. Okay, I've that done now. Right. Sorry now. Just having a little bit of food bar here. Are we all there?
Hello, yes.
Great. Look, okay. So just What's new to this type of process is to give each of the community groups a section of time to themselves about their own particular issues or particular problems that they're facing as they try and plan for season 2021. So you're going to have to pre-register for this, and we're going to give you up until the 20th of November to do that. And we're looking to just allocate a small period of time to look at just 3 sessions that you might, or 3 themes that you might email me before we meet. And I leave the timing of that up to your good selves. So I've made myself available and my diary available from the 23rd of November to the 10th of December to have a bespoke mentoring session with yourselves as a Fishta or as a team on 3 topics that may be related to the course content that we're doing at the moment, or that might be just something specific to your community organization in relation to the events that you might want to program or plan for 2021. All right. So I find when I'm discussing fundraising in a community environment that a lot of people have a huge amount of interpretations as to what fundraising means. And I always like to I suppose, commence these discussions from the point of view of what it's not, because then we can move on to what we can focus on, which is fundraising. So I just want you to put out of your mind that we're going to spend the whole hour talking about grant applications, or we're going to spend it talking about sponsorship, or talking about advertising. These are 3 pillars to any revenue strategy for an organization that you obviously need to be actively involved in, but they're not fundraising as such. And I'm going to just make a couple of general observations, if I may, on those 3 other revenue generation items, so that you can just maybe tick box yourself as to where you are with them. So for anybody who's applying for grants or looking at having a funding strategy where they're going to go on an annual basis and look for government grant aid, local authority grant aid, trust funds, whatever it is, I always ask people, have you got your appendix drawer ready? And by that I mean is, if you're telling me that you're interested in applying for grants, there should be a drawer or an orange box in someone's office or under their piano that has the following updated things in it. Now, it can be in paper. Ideally, it's an online or scanned as a PDF. A constitution or a copy of the rules and regulations as to how you are organized as an entity, whether that's a charitable entity or a cooperative or a kushta or whatever it is. Annual, audited or certified, or your annual accounting system, whatever process that is. Do you have the last 3 accounts? Somewhere on file, readily accessible. Pardon? Sorry, I just got a feedback there. Everybody should, I suppose, have some type of an AGM minute or report or analysis on what's going on at the last time they gathered as a group to review things. If you do produce annual reports, or you have to make annual formal reports to agencies or to Donegal County Council or to other NGOs up there, then you should have one of those updated in the file. The press cuttings file, I find, is being asked quite often by funders now, looking for background information as to the impact and reach of what you have. So you should have, and Google will do this for you to use Google Alerts properly, a number of significant headline reports of what your organization was up to in the last 12 months. Letters of testimonial, too often people are looking for these with 2 hours to go to the closing deadline. There should be a bank of those in your checklist appendix from different people, organizations, or key users of your service or organization that will testify to the quality of the service and the impact that you're delivering. Some form of a 3-year development plan or business plan. Also, it's too late in the day when you have to be analysing your board members or your committee members as to what they're bringing to the party, what skills they have. Some organisations are now looking for CVs of directors or CVs of the key players involved in the organisation. So you should try and have those to hand. If you have a company registration number, if you have charities and compliance issues in terms of tax relation and status, they should be all up to date and in the same location. If you have an insurance policy, please have the up-to-date one, and the policy reference number of the broker. And if you have, or if you don't have now, is a very good time to talk them out. Do you have a sustainable or a green policy or environmental policy? Would you have a youth policy? Do you have minority policies? May you have an artistic commission? These are policies that a lot of grant-making organizations are now asking organizations for. And then the key letters of support. Sometimes when Fáilte Ireland were asking for a festival funding application.
Colm, sorry,
Yes.
Colm, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
There's a lot of interference. People are having difficulty hearing. So can you mute everybody, Colm? Or
I thought I did that, but I'll do it again. No hassle.
Or if you want to alternatively hand post back to myself, I can do that. So whatever's easier.
Okay, participants.
Apologies, Colm, I should have.
Okay, I've muted everybody now. Sorry, I've muted everybody now. Is that okay? See, I can't hear anybody now. Hello.
Yep, that's perfect, Colm. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay, now, okay, so let me just get back to where I was. Okay, so letters of support from the key organizations that would endorse your application for the grant aid. And then I would ask anybody is to write your story in the 600-word version and then write the same story in the 300-word version and pass it around to some key people on your team so that you have the long version and the short version when it's required for filling in the applications. A lot are being done online now as opposed to just in written format. Sorry now. I think I'm admitting people still. I think it's important if you are again telling me or telling anyone that you're looking for grants, that you have a grant application diary somewhere on someone's desk or on an Excel sheet or Google shared doc, perhaps with the event checklist that alerts you to when grant aiding has been offered. I would advise everyone to sign up to as many newsletters as you can in all manner of NGO, from The Wheel, Theatre Forum, Irish Rural Link. There's some great newsletters that are out there that will alert you to when funding is becoming available. On these cold, dark winter nights, now is a good time to be reading the annual reports of grant aiding agencies, and they will showcase the types of projects and organizations that they want to feel good about supporting. And ask yourself the question, could that be our organization in that photograph in 12 months' time? Try and diary deadlines with 5 days in advance. And then I would always advise, if you have 2 or 3 people in a writing team, it's better than leaving it on to one. And then this question that we continually get, we don't fund community events, means what? For me, it means 2 things. 1, we haven't done our homework adequately. And 2, we haven't actually formed a relationship with whoever the grant aiding officer is that understands what our benefits are, or what we can bring to the party, and what their requirements are. So that's just a very quick run through on grant aiding and applying for grants. I want to just quickly look at the sponsorship issues, which I think is going to be a very difficult and decidedly awkward space for the next 24 to 30 months on the island because of what we're going through. But effectively, sponsorship is taking money off a firm under its marketing heading. It's not corporate social responsibility. It's not asking a firm to donate money to you so that they feel good about helping a local organization. It's about asking a company to invest their marketing money with your event or your organization in order for them to grow more sales. So it's about relationship management. And the verb that I find most Irish community groups use typically, and it's the wrong verb, is to ask for sponsorship. Because if an Irish business person hears that verb to ask, they tend to understand from that ask that there's nothing coming back in return. Whereas sponsorship is all about return for investment, which means if I as a sponsor invest 10 euros, I would like to see the value of 40 euros back. So again, when community event organizers head towards a sponsor's door or to have a conversation with a sponsor, we typically start blathering about the community organization and the building and the event. But most marketeers and most sponsors in today's world don't want to know about your event. They want to know about your audience. Who's there? What do they buy? Where are they from? What sort of cars they drive? And how can I sell more sausages, more beans, more turf, more oil, more holidays, more houses, more financial services to them? And the other thing that if we are serious about the sponsorship process is that as organizations, we have to have a go at giving whoever we got the money from in the first place to organize a sponsorship fulfillment report, which isn't just a Christmas card saying thank you. It actually sets out an argument to the sponsor that says, in return for your €1,000, we delivered 4,000 of marketing value by having your logo on our stage, by having your logo and your video clip on our homepage of our Facebook, of our website, by using your advertising in all our festival programs, our event programs, etc., etc., etc. And remember, a busy marketeer or a busy sales director won't have time to work up that report themselves. But if you do it for them, it means when they have the allocation meeting the following year, it's easier to say, don't cut that 1,000 to Falcara. I got 6,000 of sales out of it. Let me show you the report they gave me. So if you're going to do advertising, and this is the third of what we're not talking about today, please, 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 one of the big things we don't do is we don't research enough the local pricing. I meet a lot of event organizers and they're telling me they're going to raise 5,000 from advertising through their booklet or their program or their festival flyer or the supplement they're going to bring up with the Donegal Democrat or whatever it might be. And you go, great, if I own the Circle K on the way into Dunfanaghy, I have €500 this month to spend in marketing. If I spend €500 with the golf club or with the rugby club, what will I get in advertising there versus what you're charging me for? And most people tend not to know what the other organizations in the sports, drama and musical world or special events world are charging their advertising rates for. My advice to you all is make sure you know the local pricing before you actually set your own rate card. Try and pitch your proffer against other regional local marketing officers. By that I mean, so if I am the Circle K manager or owner in Dunfanaghy, I can put 1,000 with Highland Radio, or I could put 1,000 with the Donegal Democrat, or I could invest 1,000 with your organization. What's that 1,000 buying me that's different and more beneficial than the other two advertising avenues? Most of us don't do that. But if you want to sell it properly and get the higher return on it, you're going to have to think about some of those issues. Stressing the long-term value of our advertising, festival and community events literature is read about 4 or 5 times more often than other collateral that's around the house. And it's often kept more often as well. Okay, so there's 3 elements of what I'm not going to talk about today. What I'm going to try and focus on is our fundraising strategy or our fundraising plans for 2021 and maybe out into the middle of the new decade. There's a lot of reporting and there's a lot of analysis done on fundraising in the country. And I get a lot of my information from the Irish Philanthropic Organisation and from Charities Ireland. So this is free to serve information that I'm sharing with you. But this little graph here just shows the effort in raising €1. Legacies is the cheapest, and most of us don't even think about legacies, but that is where the growth is going to be, if you ask me. Major gifts and trusts and foundations are the next 2 and 3. Selling something is the highest, most expensive. That's via a shop or maybe a booth. And community fundraising comes in around 50 cent a cost versus 50 cent of income. So that's just something to ponder about where you're going to put your effort into. The regular giving, the lotto, the quarterly, the monthly direct debit is about 24 cents in the euro. So when people tell me that their fundraising objective is just to raise money and we need to raise as much as we can, I'm going, that's great, but how much do you need for this year? How much do you need for next year? How much do you need for the year after? And people look at me blankly and go, well, let's get through this year first. And I'm going, but that's a difficult conversation to have with a donor or with perhaps a benefactor who might want to see that there's a middle, beginning, and end to these asks. So you do need to set out a financial fundraising income target, and it's not the bit whatever we find out the HSE is giving us is left over, or it's the gap between what Donegal County Council will give us and the Arts Council. It's not that. It's that we're doing X, we need Y. Y is going to be fundraised, and J and K will come from other income streams. I also think that people, when they're looking at fundraising objectives, should just spend a little bit of time in the plan looking at the non-financial impacts and objectives of what they're trying to achieve. So what are the goals for your current donor list and events list? So if you have a golf classic every year, if you have a sponsored walk, what's the current goal or has been the current goal in that area for the last 2 or 3 years? Because these goals are all going to change in light of the circumstances we now find ourselves in. New donor segments, where can we find within our own community or our own location new donors? The volunteers or our team, what way can we develop those goals in terms of fundraising? And obviously, if we are lucky enough to have significant employers or significant corporate entities in our area who might have corporate social responsibility goals and perhaps some sponsorship, then there are other things that should be sketched out in that plan. Just very quickly, and this is preaching to the choir, a plan is just the list of steps that will accomplish your goal. The strategy, it's more than just a plan. It states, why we are trying to achieve these steps, I suppose, and to get to a goal, a plan typically is here are steps, and the strategy says here are the best steps and how and why we are using them. And I just think that given that we have a pause in most event activity facing this, we're as well to interrogate plans and strategies a bit more robustly than perhaps we have done so in the past. So again, there's a variety of methods that any organization in the community should look at in raising funds. The annual event, typically that's has been the mainstay of most organizations up and down the country for years. That's in trouble. The corporate partnership is not as widely used and is not in trouble if you're looking to have one. Not every community organization does. Community fundraisers, community fundraising has been a huge element of all our fundraising lives. And we have to look at different ways of doing those activities because of the circumstances we find ourselves in. A schools campaign, or how you activate the youth and the pedagogical zone in our sector, and then just on a building block on its own, the whole idea of regular giving and how often we can do the lotto or do the envelope collection or whatever it might be. Okay. You need a mix of all 5 or 6 things. You can't concentrate on all one, and you have to determine what sort of resources do you have to put at or to put around looking at a fundraising mix. Again, I would ask everyone to interrogate what they're doing now and see what you can change or need to refocus on. I think the geographic reach of where you are and who is raising what locally is always important to bear in mind. If the lip sync competition was held 4 weeks ago online by a large rugby club or by a soccer club and raised 16,000, that's not something you should be doing or thinking about doing immediately in the preceding 90 days after that. And also just take a look at missions and goals of what you as an organization might be set up to. So the Tidy Towns in Letterkenny is set up to do A, B, and C. It might be about other things, but in looking at a fundraising approach, you might have to tweak a little of the goal or share the goal with another organization to try and get a fundraising argument made. The long-time burners like the major gifts and beneficiaries, they are worth the wait, but then it's typically for more capital activity rather than for recurrent. I think in today's ask or today's discussion, I'm looking more at recurrent activity. So there's just a 2019 report from the Irish Philanthropy Association of sort of income fundraised by not-for-profits and charities. The bulk of that, 30%, is the regular committed gifting. The next bit is the direct marketing campaigns, which is interesting. And again, what are the resources that you have of a committee of 12 with maybe 1 or 2 operatives and maybe somebody on an intro scheme or sub scheme and an administrator to manage a direct marketing campaign? It's significant. Legacies is growing on that list, but again, that's a whole detailed discussion and presentation and workshop separate to this. But I think everybody should have, in a community setting, a beneficiary and legacy, a benefactor rather, and a legacy campaign, which allows families or people who have left the area to perhaps consider gifting to an organization that has made a significant impact in their lives a sum of money from their annual will. Okay. So this is a list that I think is very interesting to have, because in creating segments of where you would deploy fundraising strategy to, you need to take a look at these different elements. So there's a strategy that you can deploy, or a fundraising path to PAYE workers, which necessarily has to be different than your high net worth individuals. Are we having someone chatting again to us? I'm just getting a little bit of feedback there.
There's just one.
Okay, I've muted everybody again there. Does that help?
Perfect. Thank you, Colm.
Okay, sorry. Now, okay. So I think in creating your fundraising strategy, you should look through these headings and determine what is the most appropriate element of a fundraising approach for these groups within your community. And one of the groups that I think that's often lost in a West of Ireland context, especially, is our diaspora and the people overseas who may be in a position to assist us with some amount of gifting or fundraising. And very often the ask is clumsy or it's unstructured. So I would, as well as all these, and it might be that you don't want, as a community or as a group, you've decided we deliver services for elderly people here. We are not going to target them for money, or we are not deliberately going to sell lotto tickets or do hampers or do any such thing with them. They've been plucked enough, or that's not our goal and role, and that doesn't sit well with us. Incidentally, you might also decide to rule out female business leaders or male business leaders because it doesn't fit in with your ethos or orientation, and that's fine too. It's just worthwhile eliminating what you think won't work and then drilling down and arguing amongst yourselves where you will put the effort, because you can't fundraise off all these people with the same tools at the same time. If you can, you're the Gulbenkian Foundation with a staff of 60. So you need to be scientific and focused in where you deploy your limited and becoming even more limited resources, no matter how large and how passionate our committee or the group in our community may be. Okay. Now I've had a glitch. Woo! So I suppose the easiest gifting or fundraising is from the individual. I don't mean that flippantly, but just in terms of a one-to-one membership. So the traditional recruiting ways individuals or citizens can give to an activity, a program, an event, an organization, a club, a cooperative, a service, a charity, is direct mail, door-to-door, and these have their limitations now because of where we are. Face-to-face, obviously we can't use. Online is very much appropriate, and I'm going to talk to you about a couple of plans or programs that have worked very, very well in that area. Phone is still your friend when it comes to asking, but a lot of us are not comfortable with it. And then how do we get somebody's number? We have to watch GDPR guidelines and issues there. And of course, the simplest way of all, if you can, but again, Donegal may not have as many large-scale employers that would have could countenance payroll giving, and you might not be a properly constituted charitable association or organization to be able to comply with whatever staff scheme might be there. But certainly I know in other urban centres, different staff, sports and social clubs within large-scale employers have an option at the end of the year to distribute a percentage of the payroll ask from their sports and social club to local community fundraising efforts if it's agreed in advance. But you need to go on canvas for that. I need to make sure the people in the committee will also support your ask. So there's obviously members of a club or members of a community development hall, association, or of a heritage group. I'm going to talk about Friends programs a little independent of this because I think they're well worth the twine. Monthly donors, cash givers, annual donors perhaps, and the payroll givers, which is something I think we should all explore a bit more aggressively over the next few weeks and months. There's some of the trusts and foundations. They're not all, it's not exhaustive, but it's just, the Ireland Funds is a big one, but it has quite small grants of 500 and 800 and 1300 available 3 or 4 times a year. The JP McManus Benevolent Trust typically only funds organisations in Munster, but in the last 5 months, we have noticed that they're getting busy moving around the country. Vodafone Ireland Foundation depends on the objectives that are set out for the year, but has been quite good at getting money into community groups. And the Social Innovation Fund Ireland has also been. That's not exhaustive. The Wheel have a much better list, but I'm just giving you a flavour of some of the more significant organisations that like to seek out small community projects that they can get behind if they're aligned with their own funding requirements. Most people in Ireland or in our sector talk about the written ask as the begging letter. There are 2 truisms to the begging letter. One is there's no begging letter that fits everybody. In other words, you can't write one begging letter and send it to 300 addresses. It makes no sense. It just doesn't. It'll go where all the other begging letters go, into the many thanks for or however file. So in your written ask, whether it's an email prompt, whether it's a Facebook message, whether it's a YouTube posting, whether it is a formal business letter, whether it is a text message. It needs to have an emotional opening. So don't start with, in 1963, our organisation was founded by Sister Breed and Brother Tom in the parish of Glencullen-Kill, and I'm yawning by the end of that paragraph, you know? Whereas in order to stem the flow of immigration from this area, a group was founded. I'm more interested now. So that explains the reason for you existing. And typically this is not about it's not about why we are, it's about what we do. What does your organization exist for? Why is the event taking place? Why should people care? So again, tell the reader what projects you're currently running. You know, we service, we deliver, we have organized events for. Typically our audience is 60% of all the under 20-year-olds in our community, which on average totals whatever it is. Clear, well articulated information. And we tend to use a lot of jargon in our community development world. Leave it out. Internal jargon and phrases, leave them at the door because they only spook. So any donor, anyone who wants to hand over a $5 20, 100, 2,000 can understand the English you're using. You need to set out what separates you from all the other noise in the deserving world. Why should the reader of this ask support you over any other organization? Because if that answer isn't clear in the text, it won't be clear in the mind of the gifter. Why is their support vital and needed straight away? Yeah. So it has to be time effective. Prove your impact. And this is, I think, something that we have a huge difficulty with because we don't like using numbers in our community world. We like to hide behind the woolies. But I think if you're asking people for money, you have to be upfront about the money you require and the reach and impact it will deliver. So state the numbers, the number of people you assist, the number of audience that you've had through your venue, the number of people who typically enjoy the community event program that you put on an annual basis. Prove the monetary value. Give your reasons a reason to pick up the phone and contact you immediately, as opposed to Bridie or Tom or Sean or Phelan will be in contact with you over the coming days. Yeah. I think in today's world, if you can, in your ask, in your written ask, explain what a note will do. So don't take that these figures are what the figures are. It's just to give you examples. If I hand over 20 euros right now to the Buncrana Musical Society, what is that buying the society? Because I don't know, but you know. So will 20 pay for 5 hours worth of lighting? Would 40 euros pay for a full day's insurance for the hall to be used? Would 100 euros pay a fifth of the monthly insurance bill? Or now, the big one, would 250 euros pay for 6 hours of underage coaching that's under threat? You know this information better than the donor does, but very often it's never explained in those monetary terms. And I think for your ask to have meaningful punch, it needs to drill down on numbers like that. So in any fundraising plan, you need to look at the issues of monitoring progress, and KPIs, key performance indicators, Harvard jargon, sorry, should be set out in the program because we're accountable obviously to our own members, to our own community, to the donors who give us the money, to the public, and perhaps stakeholders and other beneficiaries who use us. So ongoing monitoring of highlights, what is working, what isn't, needs to be flagged or needs to be done, independent of your monthly meetings or your quarterly meetings or your weekly meetings. There should be some time set aside on an annual basis that reviews the fundraising strategy. We set out at the start of the year, we raised 20,000, 25,000 and 35,000. How far are we at June 30th, or St. John's Bonfire Night? You need to look at the calendar of activities or calendar of events that we've set out to reflect if those changes are or not being met. And I suppose to look back at a 12-month basis and to appraise what did or did not work. So I want to just, if I can, just talk to you briefly about, for community events, to me, looking on now at 15 or 18 years of being in the space, the friend scheme of the festival or the community event is a very, very important platform to strengthen your fundraising capability. Because the friend scheme does a number of things as well as collecting money. It came out of fundraising development. Sports clubs were early into it as club members, and then of course the Americanization of the provincial rugby supporters clubs has happened over the last 10, 15 years and made the concept far more readily available to support your friend. But what I have found, and what others in my space are finding, there's less money on a high street in Ireland. So the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, who've all got a till each and 3 staff, are being hit, and that's the phrase for it, by everyone from spire to steeple to track and to pitch posts. Yeah, but the HNWIs, the high net worth individuals who were out 2 miles from the town centre, living in the old bishop's house with the stables converted for 25 labs for software engineers, are probably turning over 6 times more than the local restaurant and bar. But they're not being approached by the community development event because they don't have a till, they don't have taps, and they're not on the high street. So the high net worth individual is somebody who is in your community who has a company interest in Ireland or overseas, or an adjunct of it, or is maybe working as a very well salaried individual within an international network of sales or marketing or pharma or Medicaid, and may have other contacts that could come to your assistance. So it's not just about hoovering the money from them, it's also about seeing if some of their friends, their suppliers, their co-employees, perhaps directors of other companies, might be down the road in a position to assist you with your ask. So in the States, they view their friend schemes, and in Canada, as their sponsor's nursery, because not so much that you can take somebody from a €100 donation or friends patronage every year to a 10,000 sponsorship if they're not in business, but they may have somebody to lunch at a festival event, or to a breakfast at a festival fundraiser, or to an event within the community setting that might be able to help if an introduction can be made. And if you have turned that friend from a passive, oh, it's €25 a month for 4 times a year, that's my contribution, I get 2 tickets and I get a car sticker, I'm wonderful. If you can motivate them from that to being a brand ambassador for your community organization or your event, then every time they meet people in business or in a lifestyle setting or a leisure setting, they're proud to wear the pennant. They're explaining the story behind the Inishowen Star Wars festival, and they might be chatting about why it is important for them to be involved, which means they're promoting and assisting you in your marketing and public relations reach. These schemes need one person, board member, staff assignee, if you're looking at staff, or a volunteer, whose only job is to drive the scheme for friends. Yeah, they're not involved in production, they're not involved in pitches and balls and nets, they're not involved, they're just doing this. And in time, they move from being the coordinator to the support person, and you find from within the friend scheme a chairperson of the friend scheme or a convener of the friend scheme, and that is somebody from the community who is a friend and is keen to use their house, their premises, their building, their lawn, or their garden as a place for friends to gather in support of, appropriately of course, the event or the activity that you're promoting. So schemes need to have defined levels of investment. And what that means is that if I'm spending 100, I need to know exactly what I'm getting back for my 100. If I'm putting in 150, what extra does the 50 buy me? Or if I'm paying 250 for a partner and partner, husband, wife, husband, spouse, to siblings, whatever the story is, the defined investment needs to show pro rata. I'm getting access to the online viewings from the church cathedral, the church concert series. I'm getting first dibs on merchandising. I'm getting 12 Christmas cards, and I'm getting 5, whatever it is, 10% dinners off at the festival or the event restaurateur if he or she is open. Exclusivity has to be guaranteed, and this causes some smaller communities some issues as to why certain people with badges are in certain locations and the rest of us are outside. But that is important to a friend. They want to be seen to be the friends, to have paid a bit more to help keep the show on the road. So public recognition, signage boards outside the event that says we thank you to these friends, very important. An ad in the Donegal Democrat or on your Facebook page that says the development team here would very much like to thank the following friends for their efforts in delivering €12,000 to the bottom line of production costs of our annual ROAS. And the beauty of a friend scheme is that you can do stuff in hospitality zone, and there will be hospitality in levels 1 to levels 4. Trust me, there will. There won't be level 5, obviously, but there will be hospitality moments that we can shape: a breakfast, a picnic, a walk in a flask, that we could bring friends on and animate them and discuss about festivals, events, community activities past, our ambitions for the future, places we've been to before, to form a camaraderie or an esprit de corps around your values and your mission, which is quite important. And again, most of the friend schemes have very, very strong two-way communication links between the said friend and the festival, which is important as well. The better ones have a separate small business. So the dentist or the chiropodist or the GP or the solicitor or the accountant have their own zone within it, as opposed to employed personnel. Typically, there'll be unique or bespoke tailored events. And by that, I mean that maybe only 60 of the friends can be in Farmer Joe's barn the night after the opening, or for a breakfast of the morning of the opening, and nobody else is getting in there. And it's part of their 150 or 200 euros contribution as a friend patron of the event. Pre, post, and perhaps during. During is more difficult because most of the committee or Krishna who's involved in producing the event tends to be busy at it, as opposed to, well, hopefully luxuriating around and enjoying convivial times. A lot of the better ones as well have huge high social media usage and connectivity with those who are participating, and that's important. They would give them connectivity to artists, they would give them connectivity to behind the scenes, to clips, and sometimes availability to use as a priority some of the social media video clippage or footage that you would have. In the festival world, some of the better examples are Galway Arts, Kilkenny Arts, Cork Midsummer, Errigal would have a very strong one, Clonmel Junction, Ayrshire, and Barbaro. There's the world of them in Scotland, the world of them in Wales, where a lot of well-to-do retired people who have holiday homes in the location of the Isles and the Highlands and Islands or West Wales are quite comfortable and quite happy to be members or friends of the festival or of the community event, where their caravan is parked or where their summer home is, and use it as a nice way to keep a link throughout the year to their summer memories. So there's things that I think could well work in a Donegal context. So I did a chat with some people last week about some of the better ideas we've seen, and we all know the usual ones, but I just thought for pandemic times where the congregational aspect is going to be limited for as long as we're living in pandemic times. That's the reality. Whether it's a funeral, wedding, a festival, an event, a church outing, where we congregate is going to have its limitations. So, you know, the traditional, let's get 600 people into the community hall for a fashion show, those events are gone for us for a long time. So we have to think of it differently. So there was a tradition in Kerry, in certain parts of it, where people would plant an oak on New Year's Day. New Year is coming. It's a time of renewal. It's a time of hope, time of different energy. A lot of people are going to be very happy to see the back of 2020. Is there any way that people could sponsor an oak in a part of a village green, a little grove outside of your community hall? Now, the oak might cost €4 from the garden centre, buy them in bulk off a wholesaler, and for €60, your family gets to plant an oak that day on New Year's Day. It's socially distant activity, and you could raise money from that. The veg starter packs, I've watched this in New Zealand and Canada, sorry, New Zealand and Australia, where they've had to come into spring with no gathering, and festivals were using seed growing as a way of collecting a couple of dollars from people who were in the know or who were happy to grow their carrots for the festival or to grow their lettuces for the community. Now, they paid a bit more over the odds for the thing. There was a little planter pack which had some branding to do with the festival or the community group, and it raised, you know, at least it's 60% of what the larger events couldn't do. We could do Lala Brie, the hyacinths or crocuses out of reusable jam jars. The Tesco's little alleys will be full of them from the third week of January. Could you do something there? Could you find one day in January or in December, perhaps in lockdown territory, where the money that our normal commuters would spend in driving to work, they could just donate for one day that month to the festival or the community event? So it's donate your diesel day, or it's donate your commuter fare day, but we've no Dart and we have no regular bus commuter service in Donegal. But maybe donate your diesel is the one to go. Gift your coffee or donut, excuse me, people are no longer, if they're working from home, having to purchase those ancillary G-ups during the day. Could they donate €4 to your organisation on the basis that when I wasn't in Letterkenny, I wasn't in Donegal town, I didn't have to go to Sally's for the coffee and donut, and I'm happy to give that €4 or $4.50 to this organisation. The kids are going to be at home at different times of the school year for the next season, whether they like it or not, depending on. Could we do kids at home challenges where they would do some baking, they could do some chores for a neighbour, the Baba Job concept, where there might be somebody cocooning or being sheltered nearby where they could go off and collect, do something for them and collect a few squids, and that money is donated back to the community event or the community activity or community organisation. Doubtless people have started to declutter for Christmas decorations already. Where's all that stuff going to go? Could your community organisation put out an appeal to ask people to hang on to anything they're getting from decluttering their houses or from a spring clean, to bring, donate, and do a click and collect? So you make a donation, you click on the item you want, then you go to the front of the community hall and you collect it on an appointed day, and the money is retained by the community organisation. Something that I'm watching all the time, and it's driving around the event, the amount of out-of-office emails I'm getting because people are working from home. It's an ideal location for a link to my Donate Now button. If you're working for yourself, perhaps there's a GDPR or there's corporate issues if you're working for a state organisation that doesn't want any personalised messages on your out-of-office email, but it's something worth pursuing. There's the amount of PPE gear that's required. They're only coming into their own now, but it's an online ask. So you can go to Amazon or eBay and you can get your club or parish masks done with a little logo on them. They can be knitted or sewn. There's a link to a YouTube video for how you can set up a sewing station and stitch in the logos or the colours of your home club or parish organisation. You know, and it'll cost you X, sell them for X plus Y, and you have profit. I think An Post pulled a wonderful marketing stunt in encouraging people to send cards for free to people in nursing homes. I think more and more handwritten correspondence is going to emerge during this time. So Lála Brí, the 1st of February, everyone's going to get a St. Bridget's Cross. They'll come back into fashion. Could you organise a St. Bridget's Cross purchase scheme in your community? Or could you do a Lála Brí in Mullock postcard? You know, Paddy's Day, Fergal Quinn, the late senator, introduced that for An Post. They've had those cards now for a long time. Could you do one that would be uniquely from your community? And obviously Easter COVID postcards would be another, not cash cow, but something that would contribute to your bottom line in a fundraising strategy. I'm looking at a lot of community groups doing plays for voices, skits, comedies of 3 or 4 minute clips, and doing them with a Donate Now button on the YouTube page or on the Facebook page. Variety sketches. The amount of community groups that would have had Christmas plays, Christmas pageants, pantomimes, all that is gone for the season. So where could you do elements of it, or could you do flashbacks on pieces before in a socially distant setting? So you'd have to do it on a stage or in a venue with no audience. But again, can you use the technology to earn a fee from it? Cavalcades, drive-bys and drive-ins and car bingos, all that is back in, and now it's time to plan for when we're in level 3, level 2 and level 1, because those organisations that move quickly in that space will do well. Pop-up picnics are going to be quite significant from March onwards. Large pots of stew and soup, one of mittens, where families can gather on the rug or around the table and chairs in a large park area where, again, they're not going to be mixing others. PA it, and you could find a way of doing a hamper tax or whatever, walks and talks, and include cycles in that. You could do a sponsored cycle and have a bicycle tax where, you know, to enter your bicycle, you pay €20, maybe 15 from on that operation. Walks and talks, again, the Scots and the Welsh have been very quick to this, where you could pepper your walk or your with the talk, or with artists and huts doing different things. It could be something that you might be able to do even for Christmas markets this year. The craft markets are all sort of in abeyance, and people are worried about that. Treasure hunts are outdoors, and treasure hunts in cars will do very well in Q1 next year. If you could do anything that's static and that's an outdoor display, the mummers won't be going door to door. Could you ask people in your community to put out a mummers presentation like scarecrows or like the pumpkins at Halloween and offer prizes for the best, and they would pay €20 to enter the competition. The human hamster things has gotten on rather significantly in Australia and the UK, where the gyms are closed, but if you were able to get 10 or 15 of the stationary bikes and get different groups to pedal on them, depending on from Misenhead to Malahide might be a run, and people do different kilometers on it in an area that's a key public area, but again doesn't allow congregational settings, so it isn't a front of a foyer of a shopping centre, but it could be the car park. It could be outside the post office, where as people pass, they could make a donation or they could contribute something towards what the bikers or the walkers or in Snowdonia in Wales, a couple of Boy Scouts got together and built hamster wheels and actually ran the distance of John O'Groats to Land's End in it and raised a serious amount of money for a scout troop in Snowdonia. Why did that happen like that now? So there's just some signposting that I want you to have to think about. In terms of the regulatory codes around fundraising, the best places in the country to take a look at are www.wheel.ie and the Charity Institute. And that little ruse, perhaps a bit flippant, but look, everybody needs a mask. People are going to be buying masks with funny logos on them for Christmas. There'll be Santa masks, there'll be reindeer masks. If you wanted your community to have a look at making a batch of masks, there is a full instructional video there linked that'll help you with logos and colors. Okay, so I'm going to go to the questions and answer section if I may. I'll unmute everybody if that'll work for a while, and then I'll come back. Okay, so let me just see if I can do this. So I want to participants. Oh God, are we all muted or unmuted?
We're all muted, Colm, but if anybody wants to ask a question, they can unmute themselves, even if you're not.
I do apologize again. That was a bit like asking people to take a sip from a farmer's hose. A lot of information, but I think you're not going to get it all done. But if you could try and focus on elements of it that would help you first, it possibly would be best. Okay, I'm good to take a comment or have a question flung at me, or what do you want to do next?
Can you
have some time.
Can you take a compliment?
Of course, Eamon. We're always available for those.
Well, I think on behalf of us all, that was a very, very informative and interesting presentation, especially the checklist on appendices and the fundraising ideas. I think anyone that's at this presentation today will have something in their head this evening that they can use in the future. So well done, and thanks for that, Colm.
No problem.
Okay. If anybody has a question, feel free to unmute yourself, or alternatively feed it into the chat function, whichever's most convenient.
Oh, it's a small thing. The walk and talk idea. Like, I'm an archaeologist, and we generally do these things for free. And I was wondering, is there some way to angle it? Would you ask for donations rather than a charge, or?
It all depends on your audience, is the first response. If you have a regular audience that followed that type of activity on a monthly or a weekly or a fortnightly basis, who've had it for free for the last number of seasons, but know the effort that's required to produce it, they'd feel obligated and they'd understand the need to make a donation. If you're bringing that type of activity to a new group of people who have never done it before, I don't think the donation will work. You're better off to introduce a flat charge and leave it modest at €5 or something. And as you grow your audience to those events, you can come back to them for a bit more, but at least they understand from the start that it can't be just a rock up and free.
Thanks, that's great.
Anybody else? Eamon, they're all shocked.
I think you're getting away far too lightly today, Colm.
Yeah, absolutely. But
If I'd known it was going to be this quiet, I'd have planted a few people with difficult questions for you to answer.
Well, maybe I was a bit fast, folks, but I'm just conscious that I want to give everyone the value of the hour, you know. So
No, you're getting some nice comments in from people saying that information is all very helpful. Thank you for the presentation.
good.
Sure, if there isn't anything else, or if anybody doesn't have any questions, we can wrap it up. But if there are questions, do feel free to message myself or Eamon or Colm maybe after, or I suppose myself or Eamon in the first instance, and we can forward those on to Colm as well.
Yeah.
So if there's nothing else, then thank you all very much for attending, and we will see you all back here on Thursday the 12th at 3 o'clock for the next session. Colm, the one-to-one sessions, are you happy to take requests for those now, or would you prefer to wait to the end of the sessions?
What I had suggested, I think, at the start was that we might do that registration from the 20th, after the next one onwards, if that makes sense. And would you mind, Margaret or Eamon, just letting people have my email address, so that if they want to email me between now and the next one to say, look, would you do this with us on such a date, that they could feel free to do that from now onwards.
Absolutely. When I share the recording of today's session, I'll include your email address, Colm, so anybody can contact you directly.
Brilliant.
That's perfect, no problem. And I say it will be Monday or Tuesday of next week, but we'll send the recording and the link for the next session in an email early next week. And that will include your email address, Colm. And thank you very much, Colm, and thank you everybody for taking part. Definitely very interesting, very informative. Lots of food for thought, Colm, certainly. And ideas. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all back here on Thursday the 12th.
Thanks a million, folks. All the very best.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Do you want to hang on there, Eamon and Margaret, just for a moment or two, maybe?
Yeah, we'll stay for 2 seconds. Yeah.
Not a bother, Colm. That went very well.
Yeah, it's hard to watch the slides and the chat, and I was admitting quite a number of people in the early bits, and then I got a bit waylaid myself in what I was doing on the screen, so apologies.
Yeah, no, and that's completely my fault, Colm.
No, I'm not. Come here. There's no. I'm not.
I have my Zoom set up to, you know, with a host and 2 co-hosts, but for some reason I don't know why this one just went with host only. And once I handed it over, I couldn't get it back. Control.
We handed over control to you, Colm, which is.
And I didn't realise that.
Oh, I do.
I had the full screen up, and I wasn't looking at the jump screen. Yeah, Eamon, you're right. There's quite very positive feedback there, nice and handily, which is good. So I think Colm, those that joined got something from it.
Absolutely. No, we don't give out praise easily, do we, Margaret?
Absolutely not.
It's like an unwritten rule here.
Everybody that knows us knows that. Columns, not absolutely. I love the ideas at the end. You know, the hints and tips for just, you know, I mean, those can be modified and, you know, made suit for the different organisations that were in the room. You know, excellent, very, very good. I have to say, it was excellent. And
I was conscious as well. There was no point in talking to them all as Mary from Dunlow or Dunfanaghy Music Festival organisers, that there's a lot of people there who have to run a series of 10 or 11 events throughout the year in their Hala or in their community information point centre, that have to rethink, or that are just running a fundraising campaign without necessarily a festival. So I didn't want it to be too festively orientated. So I think I escaped that today.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were sort of trying to focus on, because I mean, I'm very conscious, and having seen the list as people signed in, very few are festivals. A lot of them are, you know, your social enterprises, your community organisations. So it was very applicable to them, which is perfect. Excellent. Yeah, that's brilliant. And I will definitely have a co-host
so
function.
At 2 o'clock next Thursday, I'll email again to you, Margaret, my slides, just in case anything would happen. You know, at my end, I don't know what would, but something could. But I just like another grown up in the room to have the material.
Absolutely, it's always best, to have a backup.
And at about 10 to 3, I'll rock up but just make sure you send me the same link that you're sending to the other participants.
I'll send it all to you now. I'll include you.
Brilliant. All right.
Well,
that's great, folks. Thanks a million.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.